And with that, let's shift focus to some more news. Now, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has arrived at the Elysee Palace for talks with French President Emmanuel Macron. The meeting comes as Kyiv continues to seek sustained military support and deeper security coordination amid ongoing fighting with Russian forces. Zelensky's visit is expected to focus on battlefield needs, long-term defense commitments, and broader European backing for Ukraine. While the Elysee Palace has not released specific agenda details, officials in Paris say both leaders will review latest frontline developments and upcoming diplomatic initiatives. Andrew Latham, who's an international affairs expert, joins us live from Minneapolis. Thank you, Mr. Latham, for joining us here at NewsX World. We do appreciate you giving us your time. Now, Zelensky arrived in France and he was greeted by a warm hug from Macron. Macron has always sided and pushed for the Ukrainian needs. It's crucial here to know that the meeting is also coming after the Ukrainian delegation met with US officials in Florida and in Washington. What can we expect now from this meeting between Zelensky and Macron?
Well, the two parties have different sets of interests here. On the one hand, Zelensky really wants, first of all, long-term security guarantees outside of NATO. He'd love to be within NATO, but that's not going to happen. So what's the second best option here? So he's I think, feeling out President Macron to see to what extent France might lead the European Union or act independently to provide those security guarantees. I think he's also trying to suss out the extent to which Macron can influence President Trump, Marco Rubio, Steve Witkoff, etc., to from his perspective, Zelensky's perspective, soften the terms of this evolving peace plan. So Zelensky has at least two very good reasons, three if you think about the short term, wanting more battlefield support. He's got at least three very good reasons to visit the Elysee Palace. Macron, on the other hand, is forever trying to position France as a leader within the European Union. And the European Union as having strategic autonomy. This is one of his buzzwords. It sounds better en français, to be sure, but strategic autonomy. And so to what extent can the European Union go it alone without the United States in support of Ukraine, both during these negotiations and as a security guarantor after the negotiations? So that's what I think the stakes are for both parties. And I think there is ample middle ground there that they can come to some kind of modus vivendi, some kind of working agreement that will allow them both, at least in part, to pursue their short, medium, and even long-term interests.
All right. Thank you for your comment there, but do stay on. There's some news now coming in from Israel, where according to reports, Israeli President Isaac Herzog will travel to New York City next week. Now, the visit will focus primarily on meetings with leaders of the local Jewish community. Reports don't suggest whether Herzog will meet US President Donald Trump. The trip comes soon after Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu formally requested a presidential pardon, a move Trump is reportedly pressing Herzog to grant. Now, Herzog's visit also follows the election of Zohran Mamdani as New York City's mayor. Mamdani, who is a democratic socialist, has pledged to arrest Netanyahu if he enters the city. Has not taken office yet, though. Let's welcome back Andrew Latham into the discussion here. Mr. Latham, this is a very interesting turn of events. We do know how President Trump has pushed President Herzog to pardon Netanyahu. But Mamdani, who is the mayor of New York City, has made statements quite to the contrary. How do you see this development?
Well, it's a very complicated and therefore very interesting topic. First of all, soon-to-be Mayor Mamdani has no authority to arrest anybody on an international criminal court charges, and so he's signaling to his base in a very unsavory way that he is opposed to both Netanyahu, but also beyond that to the state of Israel, to the whole pro-Zionist thing. But the Herzog piece is also quite interesting. It's not unusual for an Israeli prime minister to visit New York City, which has the largest Jewish population of any city in the United States. But the timing is interesting. Why now? Why right immediately following Netanyahu's application for pardon? And that's interesting because is he Herzog trying to distance himself from the entire political scandal by going overseas? Or is he trying to represent himself as being above the fray? I'm still the president. I'm still conducting Israel's diplomacy abroad. I'm not going to be sullied and tarnished by this pathetic scandal involving Netanyahu. So it's one of those two things, I think. But it's also simply somebody has to be doing the diplomatic work. And right now, Prime Minister Netanyahu is not available.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Leedham, for giving your comment on that. And with that, viewers, let's move on now. Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu has also arrived at the court in Tel Aviv, where he will be on trial over the corruption charges against him. There have been protests since Netanyahu has submitted a pardon request to the president. Netanyahu has said that the long-running cases were tearing the country apart. Meanwhile, some protesters have reacted. Let's show you.
Yesterday, Benjamin Netanyahu, the so-called Prime Minister of Israel, requested to be exonerated from all his files. And we're here to say there's no such thing as being exonerated from files, from being a criminal. And he is a criminal, and he should be standing on trial just like every other citizen in Israel.
We've been coming here almost once a week throughout Benjamin Netanyahu's trial to make sure that the trial continues, to express our dismay, and especially today after Bibi Netanyahu, without pleading guilty, without taking responsibility, asked Herzog for a pardon, which we find unacceptable. There's still a law in Israel, and that's fine. Let him confess his crimes, let him claim his guilt and responsibility, and then ask for a pardon.
Moving on, viewers, now Pope Leo I, U.S. pontiff, arrived at the monastery of Saint Maro in Anaya in Lebanon, where he visited the tomb of Saint Charbel. Cheering crowds had gathered to welcome the Pope, hoping his visit would promote peace in the country. On his second overseas trip following Turkey, Leo urged Lebanese leaders to continue efforts toward peace in the aftermath of last year's conflict between Israel and Iran-backed Hezbollah and the continuing Israeli strikes. The 70-year-old Pope described his visit as a mission of peace and will remain in Lebanon until December 2. Listen in to what a few localites had to say.
نتأمل زيارة البابا على لبنان وعلى بيروت وتعم السلام ببيروت وبلبنان وبالعالم كله.
زيارة البابا زيارة أمل وزيارة تجديد للبنان الله بيريد. يعني لبنان من وراء زيارة البابا رح ياخد مسار جديد، مسار سلام اللي هو جايب لنا إياه معه.
And with that, it's